Hey everybody, I am so glad to have you back today. Today I'm going to be talking about the genesis for the idea of Kaleidoscope and what happened since and where I am now. So first we're going to take a time machine back to 2013 when the idea first hit. And then obviously a lot's happened in the past 8 years, so going to be talking about all of the changes that have happened in that time. And finally, where I am now with pre-writing and what I'm going to be doing next, which is asking my characters 36 very specific questions. So let's roll the opening titles and jump right in. Okay guys, back from the opening titles. Everyone buckled in, ready to take a little time travel journey back to 2013? Good. So, I'm gonna turn on my screen recorder here, and this is the first time I've used this, so, you know, fancy stuff. So, here we are. I am showing you the synopsis for a book that I wrote called Not That Girl. Not That Girl is the original title of Kaleidoscope, but it is way different from the Kaleidoscope that you're going to know. I'm gonna read you this synopsis. So, Lee and Brent were the couple everyone assumed would be together forever, but their relationship is shaken at the end of their junior year when Brent loses a leg in a near-fatal auto accident. At first, Lee sticks by his side, but as much as she tries to help him recover, that's exactly how much he shuts her out. Lee keeps trying until she can't take being invisible anymore. The end of the relationship is devastating, of course, but underneath that grief she feels an acute sense of failure because she couldn't live up to the model of good girlfriend she keeps in her head. Lee had hoped her friends would understand, but despite her explanation, not only do they think she's heartless, their cruel words have Lee questioning her own value. Sick of being surrounded by judgment, Lee escapes to a coffee shop and meets Court, a barista and struggling artist who is living the hipster dream, mustache and all. Lee is enchanted by his age, his interest in her, and the security a relationship brings. She becomes ensconced in Court's world, his indie music, clove cigarettes, and experimental cinema. With each new experience, Lee pushes Brent further from her mind. ... until he returns to school. Lee sees him, talking, joking, smiling with everyone around her, as if the months of depression were all in her head. And that's when the dam breaks. Lee and Brent have the fight they never had. The sudden burst of old emotion makes Lee realize that her relationship with Court is not healthy either. It's time for Lee to stop hiding and start rebuilding her life. While she's learned what it means to be in love and how to fall out of it, how to rebound, how to forgive others, she has one more lesson to learn: how to forgive herself. Because once Lee accepts that she's not the person she thought she wanted to be, she'll find out she's so much more than that girl. So that's this, nice little romantic drama YA novel. Doesn't sound too terrible. Except this thing bored me to tears. I swear. I love the idea. I love the idea of this young woman discovering herself inside a relationship, realizing that she doesn't have to just be a good girlfriend. She can be so much more than that. And let me tell you one other thing. So Brent, he's going to be a character in a Kaleidoscope, but this Court guy, not sure whether he's going to figure in, because here's the real deal, is that the male romantic lead, whom I am calling Jonah for Kaleidoscope, had yet to exist in this version. This synopsis was dated May 24th, I believe. May 24th, 2013. And I finished this draft on December 10th, 2013. So that is the last time that I worked on it. So love all the conflict, all the drama, all of the self-discovery that's in it. But oh my God, this thing bored me to tears, I swear. Let's go on to what became of it next. Okay, so the next iteration is called The Internal Fixation of Broken Hearts. A real pretentious title. I kind of love it though, but it's not. This was before I realized that I was going to write romantic comedies. What happened between Not That Girl, the 2013 version, and 2016, which is this version right here, this Internal Fixation of Broken Hearts, is a couple things. One of them was definitely not me realizing I needed to write romantic comedies, and maybe that's a story for another day. But one thing that happened is I couldn't get this story out of my head because, like I said, I loved the idea of Not That Girl. It wasn't exciting me. So I put it aside. I wrote another novel, which got me eventually a mentorship at the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, and worked on a book with my mom, who is a published children's author. And then I decided I want to revisit this story because I also took this acting class. I accidentally took an acting class. I thought it was a writing class. It was about finding your comedic voice, but it was about like being an actor and finding your comedic voice. And anyway, long story short is that I kind of became the writer for everybody in that class, and there was one person in the class who I was writing a monologue for, and so I tried to write him a spoken word piece, and I ended up writing it in the voice of this super minor character in Not That Girl. He's the best friend, who's Brent's best friend, kind of a douche. He was a class clown, and I named him Jocko, like some dumb nickname. So in writing for this guy in my acting class, I channeled this voice because it was along the lines of the thing he was trying to explain to me, which I ended up not really understanding it. This whole piece didn't work out. Regardless, I wrote this monologue, and suddenly, to me, it started feeling like Jocko was in love with Lee, and he pined for her from afar. And I liked that character, and I liked the idea that maybe Jocko caused the car accident, but he wasn't getting blamed, and Lee gets blamed for breaking up with Brent. And then they end up finding each other in their grief. And so that became the eternal fixation of broken hearts, but it was not long-lived. So this is a chapter from it that I wrote for the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. They do have an annual conference. You can pay for a critique from an agent or editor. So I actually wrote the first 23 pages here, and I submitted the first 10 for the critique, and here I'm going to show you why it didn't work. So it's a form thing. Lee and Jocko's experiences dealing with the aftermath of the incident in Chapter 1 run parallel. To reflect this, I've written the book in 2 columns. One for Lee, one for Jocko. How you read the story is up to you. You may choose to read one of their columns first, beginning to end. Read a chapter from Lee's perspective, then the same chapter from Jocko's perspective, or vice versa. Read a paragraph from Lee's perspective, then a corresponding paragraph from Jocko's, or any other way. No matter which, the story will hold together, so don't let the format discourage or confuse you. Enjoy. No one should have to write that much of a disclaimer before a novel. I'm kind of embarrassed. It's okay. It was 5 years ago, Page 2021 knows better. So let's go down and look. Lee, Jordan, and like maybe you read down one column, but then you're distracted by the other one. So it's a lot. It's a lot, guys. But what I did, which is really cool, is I made it so that a lot of things line up. So like Unreal, dozens of brake lights illuminated in a synchronized dance. And then, except, shit, brake, my car lurched half a foot from the bumper in front of me. Damn traffic. So, like, they're in the same spot. I mean, there's some cool stuff here. But really, the relationship was what I was into. So, that is version 2 of this idea. Version 3 is, I tried to do this story in verse. I wrote some poetry to try to see if it was something I could do. and I created a playlist, and the whole mood was somber, and I realized I was supposed to be writing romantic comedies, and I got ensconced writing and directing in Terabang. So I came up with the idea that I called Sliding John Malkovich. This was in 2019. I realized I was supposed to be writing romantic comedies, and I love Sliding Doors, the movie with Gwyneth Paltrow, where she misses a subway and her life is very different than if she makes that subway. And Being John Malkovich, the Charlie Kaufman movie, is just brilliant and weird, and I love the portal fantasy. It has a similar vibe to Sliding Doors in terms of the what if factor, the surrealism, and the whole wish in Not That Girl was Lee saying, I wish that Brent had never gotten in that car accident. So now I have this idea where we get to find out what happens if he never gotten in that car accident. I got another critique from SCBWI, Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. It's still a novel at this point, and it is a YA speculative romantic comedy, but look, the title. I'd fixed on the title. And so go down here to chapter 1. And this is where the title comes from. Due to the butterfly migration, until further notice, the courtyard will be closed at lunchtime. Lee read the sign 5 times, hoping a word would change or that she might notice something different, but no, she'd read it right the first time. So a group of butterflies is called the Kaleidoscope. And a kaleidoscope is also that toy where you turn it and you see different patterns in these same pieces. And so butterflies are a big part of Kaleidoscope, and we'll get there in the future. Don't have to worry about that now. So I wrote this, and then go down here. His name is still Jocko. And there's a whole bunch of friends. So we have chapter 2 here. At least they were laughing. It felt good. Always did. Soothed a little of the old existential ache. But as much as his friends' laughter reminded Jocko that he was alive and that he had a gift for making people happy, it was also a reminder that they didn't take him seriously. They laughed at anything he said if he gave it a comedic inflection. He gave that comedic inflection a lot, even with the truth, especially with the truth. So we have 2 chapters. It's going to alternate between Lee and Jocko. That's what Jonah was called at this time. And when I got to the SCBWI, the critique was, wow, you have a really great visual sense. The dialogue is very distinct, and I understand who's speaking. But between the chapters, your narrative voice is very similar for Lee as it is for Jocko, so it's difficult until I see who is talking in that dialogue specifically to know whose chapter it is. And if there was ever a sign from the universe, dialogue is distinct. Clear visual sense. And your narrative voice doesn't distinguish between the 2 characters. Are we talking about a screenplay, guys? So May 2019 was the last time that I worked on Kaleidoscope as a novel. And after the SCBWI critique, where they told me basically that I was good at writing screenplays, I decided to make Kaleidoscope a feature. And with COVID, got delayed, but that's lucky because I got to work on How to Fall in Love the Hard Way. And also, now I get to do this series for all of you and talk to you about what I'm making here instead of just writing it and hoping for the best. So that's the history of the novel of Kaleidoscope, from Not That Girl to that very long, pretentious title about broken hearts, which I kind of love and I can't remember for the life of me. Oh, right. The internal fixation of broken hearts. Okay. So that's the end of the history of the novel of Kaleidoscope. Now, let's get into where we are with the feature. Now it's on to what have I been doing since May 2019 to make this a movie. And honestly, not a lot. Like I said, I was filming in Terabang. We shot in August of 2019, and then I was really hunkered down with post-production and working. And I was also writing Definitely Not Anymore, which is my Passover romantic comedy, which got in the second round of Austin, I love it. but it is a little too expensive to be a first feature, so we're saving it for number 2. And once COVID hit, after I dragged myself out of the stupor of doom scrolling and wondering what was going to happen, I had an itch to make something, and since making anything outside of the home was really risky, I got into How to Fall in Love the Hard Way. So I took a pilot that I had previously written that I was obsessed with. It has my favorite male romantic lead that I've written yet. Hopefully Jonah overtakes him because we always want to do better. And the pilot, though, it has really great snappy, crackly dialogue. I adapted it for audio, cast it, recorded it. It premiered on my birthday in 2020. That was a great birthday present. And then I decided to make the whole series because who knew when we were going to be out of that thing. We'll have episode 10 wrapped in November. I'm fingers crossed it'll be wrapped by my birthday. That would be a nice second birthday with COVID existing present. But Kaleidoscope's always been on my mind. I actually, a few months ago, did a little consult with David Wapple. So David, if I am saying your name incorrectly, I really apologize. David is a fantastic consultant and screenwriter. If you frequent Twitter, you are familiar with him. Here is his website. So I took it to David, who's just a wizard with story. He actually helped me with How to Fall in Love the Hard Way because I have 2 writing groups. But my 2 writing groups had heard me talk ad nauseum about most of my projects, and before I wrote the remaining 9 episodes of How to Fall in Love the Hard Way, I wanted to make sure that my outline was solid from someone who did not know me, had no investment in the show, and hadn't heard me talk endlessly about my intentions. And so I took it to David, and he asked some really great questions and really clarified some things. So when I was getting ready to figure out if I could write Kaleidoscope, I came to him with a really poorly done, pitch document. And I'm gonna pull that up right now. Like, believe me, this is not something that I would want to show to anybody, but you're seeing it all. Here it is. It is this. So I took all of these. These are all stock images from free stock image sites. And this one right here, this neon color palette, I love. The palette that I'm looking for is sunsets during the time loop and sunrises during the real world. My comp titles are Palm Springs, Sliding Doors, and Being John Malkovich. I changed the spelling of Lee's name. I don't know why, but there it is. And I changed Brent, the boyfriend, to be Devin. So I'm going to, you can read all of this if you want to, but I'm going to read this last paragraph. Kaleidoscope isn't your typical Groundhog Day redux about fixing your past mistakes to become a better person. It's a story about how even if you could change the past, it's useless because the past has already changed you. There's no coming back from mistakes, only moving forward, hopefully with confidence, wisdom, and a person you'd never thought you love, but kind of do. I like this image, but here's the definitions for kaleidoscopes. That's the document. So I came to him with that and the idea, and word vomited the entire history I laid out for you, plus a bunch of other things. It's a whole mess. And he listened and he asked a bunch of really great questions. But the biggest question that he asked me was something I hadn't even thought of yet, which it's gonna make me sound real dumb, guys, but so I'm showing this terrible 3-page document, so I might as well just show you everything. Here's my notes from my call. Okay. So why would Lee and Jonah go off together? Yeah. And after all of my word vomit, I didn't have a reason. Like, I didn't know what drew them together. It's just, that was what the story was going to be. Yeah, okay. External circumstances that Lee and Jonah try to change, how they affect their lives outside of the time loop. Structure the big turns of the film around a solving of a problem. I had issues with Lee's character, obviously, so I was supposed to write a perspective on them. And how would Lee and Jonah respond to the last paragraph of the synopsis, the themes? What are their thoughts? Ideally, they're too extreme and need each other to pull them towards the center. So these are the notes that I took from my call with Wapple. This last section right here, how would Lee and Jonah respond to the last paragraph of the synopsis? this is the linchpin of what I need to do next. And now we're going to go into exactly what I'm doing pre-writing wise and what these next steps are. And I'll talk about those 36 questions that I talked about at the top. Okay, so now we are into what I'm doing next. So have the idea, I have a direction, which is I need to know who these characters are and why they're attracted to each other. A few years ago, actually I'm looking at it now, in 2015, you're looking at it too, in 2015, I read this article, The 36 Questions That Lead to Love. And I saved it as sort of that's an interesting idea, maybe there's a movie in it. And then I started reading it at one point when I started online dating. And I actually chambered a few of these questions just in case I was having a difficult time figuring out questions on a date. Anyway, so I found this article. I thought it was interesting. And even though I mostly just used it to ensure that I was able to have something to talk about when I was going out on dates, I remembered it when I was talking on the phone with David about Kaleidoscope. And if I need to figure out what Lee and Jonah's perspectives are, how about they answer some questions? So there are 36 questions here, and I've written the answers for 3 of them, these 3 so far. And I haven't just written them like, oh, Lee would like this person, Jonah would like this person. No, I've written them in the form of a screenplay. So I do it in Microsoft Word, and I type it with fountain markup, which is a way you can type a Word document, and then you save it as a text file, and you can import it into Final Draft, and it'll import it as a script with like 90% proper formatting. And it's great because I can just keep my fingers on the keyboard and type, and I don't have to worry about hitting tab or making sure things are formatted properly until I'm in the rewrite. So because this is just pre-writing, here's, I wrote the 3 answers to these 3 questions, and I dated when I wrote them at the top. And as you will see, I have written only 3 of them, starting in June, because I realized in June that I, for sure, would like to share this process with you from idea to premiere. And so I decided to stop. I rewrote another one the other day just because there's 36 and I'd like to get through all of them before I really take a look at the plot again. So here's the next step, is I am writing vignettes between Lee and Jonah to try to figure out who they are, what they think, and why they work well together, and what their worldview is. And also, what about them clash? That's where we are with pre-writing. And over the course of the next 33 days, I'm going to be answering one of these questions for them every day. And I will be doing a little vlog about it at the end of each day, saying what their answers were and one thing I learned about them. Now, I'm going to sign off and get into question number 4. What can constitute a perfect day for you? And by you, it means Lee and Jonah. In doing this exercise, I'm learning about what their voices are. Do they use questions? Are they use statements? Are they snarky? Are they sarcastic? Do they find things to nitpick on grammar? Do they have a word that they use, a phrase they use? Do they talk with ellipses and pauses? Are there beats between all their words? What's going on with them? I want to make it so that when people are reading this script, they don't have to look at the names over the dialogue to know who's talking. Just in the same way when you have a group chat going, like 90% can figure out who's talking in the group chat without even looking at their icon or their name in it. All right, my battery's dead. I gotta write stuff. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And I will see you next week with an update on where I am in answering these 36 questions. Bye. Sorry, my cat has a lot to say.